today I'm going to read a story, an initiation story actually, the story of Vassalisa the Wild. There are many of us that avoid the innocence of ourselves, searching only for the wild aspect, grasping and wanting that one that is the one that is potentially unknown, the one that we feel is out of reach, the one that is mysterious, the one that holds the power and the fire and the anger. And yet to have that, we need to know ourselves and our intuition. So I'm going to read from Dr. Estes' book, The Women Who Run with the Wolves, who I trained with a few years ago. So I'm Sarah Bullock and I'm here to read you a story. Once there was, and once there was not, a young mother who lay on her deathbed. Her face pale as the white wax roses in the scarcity of the church nearby. Her young daughter and her husband sat at the end of her old wooden bed and prayed that God would guide her safely into the next world. The dying mother called to Vassalisa, and the little girl in red boots and white apron knelt at her mother's side. "Here is a doll for you, my love," the mother whispered. And from the hairy coverlet she pulled a tiny doll, which, like Vassalisa herself, was dressed in red boots, white apron, black skirt, and vest embroidered all over with coloured thread. "Here are my last words, beloved," said the mother. "Should you lose your way or be in need of help, ask this doll what to do. You will be assisted. Keep the doll with you always. Do not tell anybody of the doll. Feed her when she is hungry. This is my mother's promise to you. My blessing on you, dear daughter." And with that, the mother's breath fell into the depths of her body, where it gathered her up, soul and all, and rushed out from her lips, and the mother was dead. The child and the father mourned for a very long time. But like the field cruelly ploughed under by war, the father's life rose green from the furrows again, and he married a widow with 2 daughters. Although the new stepmother and her daughters spoke in polite terms and always smiled like ladies, there was something of the rodent behind their smiles, which Vassalisa's father did not perceive. Sure enough, when the 3 women were alone with Vassalisa, they tormented her, forced her to wait on them, sent her out to chop wood so her lovely skin would become blemished. They hated her because she had a sweetness about her that was otherworldly. She was also very beautiful. Her breasts were bounding while theirs were dwindling from meanness. She was helpful and uncomplaining, while the stepmother and stepsisters were among themselves like rats in the offal pile at night. One day, the stepmother and stepsisters simply could not stand Vassalisa any longer. "Let us conspire to make the fire go out, and then let us send Vassalisa into the forest to Baba Yaga, the witch, to beg fire for our hearth. And when she reaches Baba Yaga, well, old Baba Yaga will kill her and eat her." Oh, they all clapped and squeaked like things that lived in the dark. So that evening, when Vassalisa came home from gathering wood, the entire house was dark. She was very concerned and inquired of her stepmother, "What has happened? What will we have to cook with? What will we do to light the darkness?" The stepmother admonished, "You stupid child. Obviously we have no fire and we can't go out into the woods because I am old. My daughters can't go out because they are afraid. So you will be the only one that can go out into the forest to find Baba Yaga and get a coal to start our fire again." Vassalisa replied innocently, "Well, right, yes, I'll do that." And so she set out. The woods became darker and darker. The sticks cracked underneath her feet, frightening her. She reached down into the long, deep pocket of her apron, and there was the doll of her dying mother had given her. And Vassalisa patted the doll in her pocket and said, "Just touching this doll, yes, I feel better." And at every fork in the road, Vassalisa reached into her pocket and consulted the doll. Well, should I go left or should I go right? The doll indicated yes or no, or this way or that way. And the Vassalisa felt the doll, some of her bread as she walked and followed. What she felt was emanating from the doll. Suddenly, a man on a white horse, dressed in white, galloped by, and it became daylight. Farther on, a man in red sauntered by on a red horse, and the sun rose. Vassalisa walked and walked, and just as she came to the hovel of Baba Yaga, a rider dressed in black came trotting on by on a black horse and rode right into Baba Yaga's house. Swiftly it became night. The fence, made of skulls and bones surrounding the hut, began to blaze with a fire, so the clearing there in the forest glowed with an eerie light. Now the Baba Yaga was a very fearsome creature. She travelled not in a chariot, not in a coach, but in a cauldron shaped like a mortar, which flew along all by itself. She rode this vehicle with an oar shaped like a pestle, and all the while she swept out the tracks of where she'd been with a broom made from the hair of a person long dead. And the cauldron flew through the sky with Baba Yaga's own greasy hair flying behind. Her long chin curved up and her long nose curved down, and they met in the middle. She had a tiny white goatee and warts on her skin from her trade in toes. Her brown-stained fingernails were thick and rigid like roofs, and so curled over she could not make a fist. Even more strange was Baba Yaga's house. It sat atop huge, scaly, yellow chicken legs and walked around all by itself. Sometimes it twirled around and around like an ecstatic dancer. The bolts on the doors and the shutters were made from human fingers and toes, and the lock on the door with a snout with many pointed teeth. Vassalisa consulted her doll and asked, "Is this the house we seek?" And the doll in its own way answered, "Yes, this is what you seek." And before she could take another step, Baba Yaga in her cauldron descended on Vassalisa and shouted down at her, "What do you want?" And the girl trembled. "Grandmother, I come for fire. My house is cold. My people will die. I need fire." Baba Yaga snapped, "Oh yes, I know you and your people. Well, you useless child, you let the fire go out. That is an ill-advised thing to do. And besides, what makes you think I should give you the flame?" Vassalisa consulted her doll and quickly replied, "Because I ask." Baba Yaga purred. "You are lucky. That is the right answer." And Vassalisa indeed felt very lucky she had given the right answer. Baba Yaga threatened, "I cannot possibly give you fire until you've done work for me. If you perform these tasks for me, you shall have the fire. If not..." And here Vassalisa saw Baba Yaga's eyes turn suddenly to red cinders. "If not, my child, you shall die." So Baba Yaga rumbled into her hovel and lay down upon her bed and ordered Vassalisa to bring her what was cooking in the oven. In the oven was enough food for 10 people, and the Yaga ate it all, leaving just a tiny crust and a thimble of soup for Vassalisa. "Wash my clothes, sweep the yard, and clean my house. Prepare my food and separate the mildewed corn from the good corn and see that everything is in order. I will be back to inspect your work later. If it is not done, you will be my feast." And with that, Baba Yaga flew off in her cauldron with her nose as the windsock and her hair as the sail, and it became night again. Vassalisa turned to her doll as soon as the Yaga had gone. "What shall I do? Can I complete those tasks in time?" The doll assured her she could, and to eat a little and go to sleep. Vassalisa fed the doll a little too, and then she slept. In the morning, the doll had done all the work, and all that remained was the meal to be cooked. In the evening, the Yaga returned and found nothing undone. Pleased in a way, but not pleased because she couldn't find a fault, Baba Yaga sneered. "You are a very lucky girl." She then called on her faithful servants to grind the corn, and 3 pairs of hands appeared in mid-air and began to rasp and crush the corn. The chaff flew around the house like golden snow. Finally, it was done, and Baba Yaga sat down to eat. She ate for hours and ordered Vassalisa on the morrow to again clean the house, sweep the yard, and launder her clothes. The Yaga pointed to a great mound of dirt in the yard. "In that pile of dirt are many poppy seeds, millions of poppy seeds, and I want, in the morning, to have 1 pile of poppy seeds and 1 pile of dirt, all separated out from each other. Do you understand?" Vassalisa almost fainted. "Oh my, how am I going to do that?" She reached into her pocket and asked the doll. "Don't worry, I will take care of it." That night, Baba Yaga snored off to sleep, and Vassalisa tried to pick the poppy seeds out of the dirt. After a time, the doll said, "Sleep now, all will be well." Again, the doll accomplished these tasks, and when the old woman returned home, all was done. Baba Yaga spoke sarcastically through her nose. "Well, lucky for you, you were able to do these things." And she called for her faithful servants to press the oil from the poppy seeds, and again 3 pairs of hands appeared and did so. While the Yaga was smearing her lips with grease from her stew, Vassalisa stood by. "What are you staring at?" barked Baba Yaga. "May I ask you some questions, grandmother?" asked Vassalisa. "Ask," ordered the Yaga. "But remember, too much knowledge can make a person old too soon." Vassalisa asked about the white man on a white horse. "Ah," said the Yaga fondly, "that first is my day." "And the man on the red horse?" "Ah, that is my rising sun." "And the black man on the black horse?" "Ah, yes, that is the third, and he is my knight." "I see," said Vassalisa. Come, child, wouldn't you like to ask more questions?" wheedled the Yaga. Vassalisa was about to ask about the pairs of hands that appeared and disappeared, but the doll began to jump up and down in her pocket. So instead, Vassalisa said, "No, grandmother, as you yourself said, to know too much can make one old too soon. Ah, said the Yaga, cocking her head to the side like a bird. You are wiser than your years, my girl. How did you come to be this way? By the blessing of my mother, smiled Vassalisa. Blessing? Blessing? Screeched Baba Yaga. Blessing? We have no blessings around this house. You best be on your way, daughter. She pushed Vassalisa out into the night. I'll tell you what, child. Here! Baba Yaga took a skull with fiery eyes from her fence and put it on a stick. Here, take this skull on a stick home with you. There's your fire. Don't say another word, just be on your way. Bam! Vassalisa began to thank the Yaga, but the little girl in her pocket began to jump up and down. And Vassalisa realised she must just take the fire and go. She ran home through the dark forest, following the twists and the turns of the road as the doll told her which way to go. Vassalisa came through the forest carrying the skull, with fire blazing from its ear, nose and throat and mouth holes. Suddenly she became frightened of its weight and its eerie light and thought to throw it away. But the skull spoke to her and urged her to calm herself and continue towards the home of her stepmother and stepsisters. And this she did. As Vassalisa came nearer and nearer to her house, the stepmother and the stepsisters looked out of the window and saw a strange glow dancing through the woods. Closer and closer it came. They could not imagine what it could be. They had decided that Vassalisa's long absence meant she was dead by now, and that her bones had been dragged away by animals, and good riddance. Vassalisa advanced closer and closer to home. And as the stepmother and the stepsisters saw it was her, they ran to her, saying they had been without fire since she left, and no matter how hard they tried to start a new one, it always went out. Vassalisa entered the house feeling triumphant, for she had survived her dangerous journey and brought fire back to her home. But the skull on the stick watched the stepsisters and the stepmothers every mood and burnt into them, and by morning had burnt the wicked trio to cinders. So, which part of the story resonates for you or has the biggest impact? Which part of the story is the one that you are avoidant of? And which part of the story would you like to bring into your life? For once you start to work with a story, you have to finish, because otherwise the story will work you.